What is up, everyone? Welcome to Reality Room Spoilers with Paul, bringing you the latest on Big Brother 18 live feeds. Okay, so first thing I want to mention is that right before the veto ceremony, we're going to get to the veto ceremony very soon, don't worry. So right before the veto ceremony, Natalie, not the ceremony, but the competition rather, Natalie goes up and talks to Paul and Victor. If you guys kind of remember from a few weeks ago, James voted Victor out, but Natalie wanted to keep Victor in, and then they had the whole buyback, and Victor came back in. It was like this whole messy scenario. So Natalie seems to be trying to pin the blame on James, like she's like, oh, I shouldn't have trusted James or whatever, with making that decision, yada yada. I'm just sitting here like, well, I mean, it wasn't really James's decision; it was kind of both of your decisions. So for her to just say it like that, I mean, it just sounds a little weird to me. But anyway, Paul and Victor take that as her throwing James under the bus. Now, I don't really see it that way. I can understand where Natalie's coming from. Like, she's on the block. Like, she's just feeling like, she's feeling powerless right now. There's not really much she can do besides win veto. And at this point, she doesn't know if she's going to use it on herself or on James if she was to win. So it's kind of like she's just sees herself in a bad situation right now. And I understand where she's coming from. But Paul and Victor take what she said about her being wrong for trusting James's intuition. They took that as her throwing him under the bus. Now that's going to become important later, and we'll get to that point later. So let's go with the veto competition. So I'll just start with the winner, and then I'll explain what the competition was. So the veto winner was Corey. That's right, guys. Corey won another competition. Kind of seems like Nicole's doing very, very well for themselves right now. They won three out of the past four competitions. Might have even been, no, 3 out of the past 4, definitely. So, I mean, they're kind of stepping it up right now. I mean, I don't necessarily like Nicole, and I know a lot of you guys don't too, but, a lot of you guys are their fans. I mean, they're playing a good game. That's all I have to say. They're playing a good game, and they're winning comps now at the end, when it's probably the most important. Okay, so the veto comp was, if you guys remember from previous seasons, like they do like this little television show ad or a movie ad or something. So it's like one of those competitions. I don't know the exact details because obviously we're not allowed to watch the comp, but we'll find out on Wednesday. This had to do with the new MacGyver season that was coming back, the reboot of MacGyver. If you guys know MacGyver, it's the guy who basically makes tools out of like everyday objects to help him out of sticky situations. So, it should be a pretty fun veto competition when we see it. But Corey was the one who won it. So that's big for Nicole right now. And it's also big for the Final Four Alliance, who, wanted to make sure that James and Natalie didn't win, because otherwise one of them would be on the block. So Nicole knew that they had to win this one. Otherwise, either Nicole or Corey would have been on the block next to whichever one of the Jatalie group could have taken themselves off. Okay? So, but what was interesting, though, is that Natalie and James seems to both want to use the veto on each other if they were to get it. So I don't know. It just seems kind of weird to me. I'm not sure if they were serious or not. They seem serious, and a lot of people on Twitter are saying that, oh no, Natalie's just lying or whatever, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't know if she's lying. I don't want to put words in her mouth. It is what it is. But anyway, it didn't end up being relevant because the winner of the veto was Corey. Okay, so let's jump into the nighttime after the veto competition. So for some reason, Natalie gets this feeling that she's going to be the one going home. And to tell you guys the truth, right after the veto competition, basically Paul, Corey, and Nicole all decide that they want Natalie gone. So it's weird that she kind of had that intuition when it was actually happening. But let me explain to you the reasoning why they want to get Natalie gone. So they've been looking at all the competitions that they've been having the past few weeks. They've been thinking to themselves that Natalie has been doing way better than James in the majority of the competitions. Now, I know you're all thinking James has been throwing a lot of those competitions, and you're right, he has been throwing a lot of those competitions. So maybe their mindset is a little off base, but they obviously don't know that. So they're thinking about getting Natalie out this week and kind of leading James on into thinking that he's the one that's going. So he's kind of a little rattled before the HOH competition. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you think that's a good plan to get Natalie out to kind of rattle James. And let me know down below who you think's the better competition. Who's better competitions, James or Natalie? I mean, to me, I can understand their reasoning for wanting to get Natalie out, but I think getting James out is probably the best bet for them. Because honestly, I think when it comes to like final two situation, I think any of them could beat Natalie in a final two. Just my personal opinion. With James, it's yet to be seen. I think they have a less shot, so that's why I think they should get James out so they can always secure their spot of taking Natalie to the final two in case one of their fellow duos gets knocked out. So that's what I think they should be doing. But anyway, who cares what I think, right? So it seems like Natalie's going to be the one going home this week. But Natalie seems to know that she is the target, talking to James. And she was telling James, listen, and this really shook me, and it shook James too. But she told James, listen, if you work with Nicole after I leave, I'm never talking to you again. And James was so distraught by that comment. Like, he was like, why the hell would you say that to me? That is not nice at all. Like, this is just like a game. Why are you treating this like a whole personal thing? And Natalie's all like, well, they're the ones that betrayed us. You know, they're the ones that put us in the situation in the first place. You know, James really just distraught about it. I mean, she took it back later. She's like, listen, I didn't mean it like that. Like, it was just heat of the moment. But you can kind of see the whole Jatalie showmance kind of crumbling before your eyes on the feeds. And it's not a good sight to me, and I feel really bad for James because he has to be, you know, they had this little thing with James where Natalie's like, oh, I dated hot guys and I dated ugly guys before, and, you know, I mean, I don't know, it just seems like, I don't know, Natalie's just not saying the right things right now that she should be saying to James, and just in my opinion. I think that she should watch her wording very carefully because I think she's hurting James' feelings. I mean, let me know what you guys think down below. I mean, I think saying that you would never talk to someone again, to your showmance, if they align with certain people, that's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty big thing to do. And I'm not sure whether or not, I just got to give it to James for being like the champ that he is, just like getting through that. Okay, so let's go to last night. So I'm shooting this on, what's today? Monday. So last night was Sunday night. So Paul and Victor invite James up. So very similar to how they invited Natalie up, or how Natalie invited herself up. I don't remember what the circumstances were. But Paul and Victor invite James up rather. And their point was they wanted to try to kind of wedge the two of them together. Wedge them apart. And I didn't really see that from the conversation they were having, but from what Paul basically asked James, he said, listen, I want to know who had the idea to go after me first 2 weeks ago when you guys backstabbed us, when they had the Final Five thing with Michelle, Paul, Victor, and Jatalie. They wanted to know who was the one that put it in their head, because Natalie seems to have told Paul and Victor that it was James who put it in Natalie's head that Paul and Victor were coming after James. And as you guys know, the whole reason why Natalie put the two of them on the block was because she thought that Paul and Victor were going to go after James, or Paul was at the very least, because that's what they heard from Nicole. And James says, no, that's not what happened. What happened was before eviction the previous week with Paulie, Nicole told Natalie that Paul was going after James. And then after eviction, when Paulie got out, Nicole told James and Natalie together that Paul was doing that. Okay, so that seems to have been, so that's what actually happened. And Paul's just like thinking to himself, he's like, okay, listen, I know you're a straight shooter and I believe you. And I just don't want this to get out to anyone that we're having this conversation. James is like, listen, I understand, it's fine. And like James is like a little confused on why Natalie would say it was James who did it. And Paul's like, listen, I'm not trying to build a wedge between you guys, where he totally fucking is. Jesus, Paul. I'm not trying to build a wedge between you guys, so it could have just been strategy. It could have just been her trying to get herself out, make herself look sketch. And James is like, yeah, you're right. And then James started to tell Paul and Victor about all the stuff that Natalie's been saying, like about how she wouldn't talk to him ever again if he aligned with certain people. And they're like, dude, listen, I'm sorry, man. It just I don't like, that's like personal stuff. I don't really know what to do about that, but it sounds like it's a rough time. And they're like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, it is. So they send him back downstairs, and they seem to have gotten their information that they wanted from him. So, I mean, it is what it is. So jump forward to today, and Victor, when I said that Natalie was the target, Victor was actually skeptical about it at first because he thought that Nicole and Corey would be the ones that would align more with James, and they're right. And let me tell you what Natalie and James have decided to do, depending on which one of them leaves. If Natalie leaves, James is going to work with Nicole and Corey. That's what they both told each other. And if James leaves, Natalie is going to work with Paul and Victor. So it seems like the showman has different opinions on this, which actually makes sense judging by the circumstances that happened 2 weeks ago. They kind of got screwed over by Nicole, but James also has a great relationship with Nicole, especially because they're both vets. So, I mean, I can understand where they're both coming from. And honestly, I think Nicole and Corey are both closer to James, and Paul and Victor are both closer to Natalie, even though they're both kind of talking, even though Paul and Natalie kind of both talking smack about each other right now. But regardless, I feel that's what's going on right now. So jump forward to today. You seem to have Paul in the backyard talking to Natalie, and you know how he kind of like, remember last week when Michelle hated Paul's guts? Like, holy shit. Like, she fucking hated this guy. But by the end of the week, it wasn't Paul that was the worst guy anymore. It was somehow Victor and Nicole again. So Paul seems to have been trying to work on Natalie's jury vote, just like he was doing with Michelle, which I think he actually did pretty well on doing Michelle last week. I know that she still doesn't like him or whatever that much, but I think it's way better than the relationship they had earlier in that week. But Natalie seems to have like a negative opinion of Paul right now, even though that she would work with him if she stayed. I don't really understand I don't really understand it all. Apparently, going back. Remember that conversation that they were having in the HOH room before the veto comp. Apparently, when Paul got called into the diary room, she misheard something that Paul said, and she thought that Paul was talking smack about her regarding the conversation that they had upstairs, where that actually was not the case. It was actually she just misheard him, and apparently that now she hates him for the week. I mean, it is what it is. But she still said that she would work with him and Victor, so, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. But Paul seems to be working on a jury vote because he knows that she's the one that's leaving this week. Okay? So, if you want my personal opinion on everything that's going on right now, I think that Nicole and Corey control the votes this week. So it doesn't even matter what Paul and Victor think because Nicole and Corey control the votes. Obviously, they're going to want to keep James, who they feel they probably have the best chance of building a connection with after, out of the two of them, Natalie and James. James is obviously the one that they would go to. And with Natalie, and, they know that Natalie doesn't like them. They know that they backstabbed Natalie and James. So, and they know that Natalie was never going to go crawling back to them. Which is actually kind of funny because James and Natalie both stabbed Paul and Victor in the back, and then Nicole and Corey stabbed Jatalie in the back. So, I don't know. I guess just desserts, am I right? Okay, so that's it for this live feed update video. I'm sorry this was a little scrambled. There's just been a lot of random talks going on. If you have any questions, ask me below if I wasn't clear on anything. And if you have any thoughts, let me know down below. And let me know who you guys think is going this week. I know I said Natalie's the new target, but things change every day in the Big Brother house. So let me know what you guys think down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Reality Room Spoilers with Paul. Until next time, guys. Peace.